Hi, how you doing? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Mariana, but you can call me Mari. And today I will be talking a little bit about all the books I've read in the last couple of months. So it's been a while, I'm not gonna lie. Every time I come back, it feels like I'm coming back with a different haircut, with not many more books read. And that's the thing, these last couple of months have been really slow for me for many different reasons, but I think the main one is because I started working again at a school, and that's taking up a lot of my time. And also I have some musical rehearsals that are also taking a lot of my time. Emotionally, some things have happened that I don't really want to go into because they are personal and they have affected me very deeply, and they have changed a lot of things in my life. So that's mainly why I've been very sporadic when it comes to posting videos, but I've been wanting to come here and talk to you a little bit about all the books I read in these months that I've been, missing from BookTube. And yeah, without further ado, let me begin by talking to you about the books I read in August. Alright, so in August, it all started very well. I started by reading Lapvona by Otessa moshfegh, and I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was weird, I thought it was disturbing and a little bit disgusting, and all the things that, you think that maybe you wouldn't enjoy, but at the same time, Otessa is so good at writing and just descriptions and the way that the story is narrated and how she's able to link the weirdest things that you wouldn't think matched together, and they do somehow. She's just a master of narrative, I think. And I really enjoyed Lapvona. I think a lot of people maybe find it way too weird for them, which is totally fine. But for me, it was an enjoyable read, and so I think I would read it again. It's one of those books that I feel like it leaves you either not wanting to touch it ever again, or to read it again and maybe analyze it. And I feel like I want to have it in physical format so I can underline and maybe analyze the different things. This book is very much talking about, well, it's about a town and things that happen in that town surrounding different characters that are all very bad people or very gullible, innocent people that are manipulated by those who are bad, and that have bad intentions. So we see our different characters just kind of go downhill, and there is this kind of ruler of the town that has cut off the water supply, and so we see how that affects the town and how they go a little crazy because they don't have water, they don't have food, etc. And yeah, I watched Books and Bow's review of this, Willow's review of this book, and I found it incredible, so I'm gonna link it down below in case you want to watch it. She's very good at explaining it, better than I could ever try to explain it, so I'll just leave it there. If you're interested on watching a really good review, that's hers, and it's incredible. And Lapvona got a 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given, and this one I didn't rate because I don't rate nonfiction, but I found it to be incredible in the way that it talks about just feminism in general. It was a little bit introductory for me, especially the first few chapters, but then it has a couple of chapters about consent, and not only consent for ourselves, but also reminding ourselves that we need to consent to other people's limits as well, and not to overshare a lot of the things that we say in order to keep our relationships stable and healthy. And I thought that was really good, and it was an incredible reminder that it's something that we all need to practice and be aware of. And it also talked about body hair, self-expression, and just the feminine urge to throw it all away, but also to live our lives in the best way that we can. And so I highly, highly recommend it if you're interested in reading like a very short, very straight to the point, easy to read feminist text. Then I read When Things Fall Apart, Heart Advice for Difficult Times. This is where my self-help era began, because I read this. It's by Pema Chandran, and I read this because I needed it at the time. And I didn't rate it, but it helped me just feel in the present. It's a book about the Buddhist belief of letting go and of detachment, but at the same time how we can connect to the moment and to the present through letting go of the past, of the future, and being okay with the uncertainties of the present, because we don't know what's coming and we don't know what could happen. And so it's important to just be here. And I thought that was just a very important reminder, because I am a very anxious person. So I tend to either really look forward to everything that's going to happen or reminisce about the past and the things that have happened. So I really enjoyed this one. It was kind of difficult to follow, I would say. That's my only critique, if I were to give one, is that since I don't know a lot about Buddhist teachings, I was lost in a couple of the chapters where I couldn't follow what she was trying to teach or what she was trying to say, because I just didn't know about it. So I was lacking the knowledge, and I felt a little stupid while reading this book, but it was really, really good. The next book I read was The Elephant Tree by R.D. Ronald, and I gave this book a 1 star. It was pretty bad. It's very just boring. I have no other way of describing it. It was just a very boring book. I thought it would be interesting because of the blurb. It talks about a detective and about a series of attacks at a high-profile center nightclub, and just like it sounded very thrillery, and that it maybe had some like gangster elements, and it had none of that. It was just about like a drug dealer, and things happened, but it just wasn't interesting. And we didn't get this detective perspective, so that was very deceitful of the blurb. I didn't like that, but but yeah, I don't really have very much to say about this, other than I wouldn't read it again. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't talk about it anymore. So let's just move on. Then I read Attached, the new science of adult attachment and how it can help you find and keep love. Another self-help / informative book about love. It taught me about attachment styles, and it's a topic that I knew nothing about, and now I know a lot about, and I talk about it a lot, because I find it extremely important and something that everybody should know. Everybody has different attachment styles. We are either anxious, avoidant, or secure, according to this theory. I sometimes feel like it's too specific in the way that sometimes we change, but it discusses the way that people can change from one attachment style to the other when it's activated, or when you have triggers that cause it to go like a different way. An anxious attachment style is someone who's very anxious about the other person, who needs constant reassurance, who is not very keen to open up in conversations due to fear, or the other way around, they open up too much because they're oversharing, because they are feeling overwhelmed, etc. And then the avoidant attachment style is someone who is the complete opposite, who when something gets serious or when they're starting to get very emotional, they will shut down and just like avoid it and run away and say, you know what, I don't want to talk about this, and then it never gets resolved because people usually tend to anxious people usually tend to attract avoidant people, so we end up in these like horrible mix of relationships that are dysfunctional, where if we met someone secure, maybe they would be better. I thought it was an interesting theory. I don't necessarily want to use it for like all the aspects of my life, but I think it would be useful in that way. And yeah, I didn't rate it because it's informative, it's nonfiction. Then I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa moshfegh, and this was my second moshfegh that I've ever read, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars as well, and the reason why I don't give these books either 4 or 5 stars is because I get a little bit bored reading them, but at the same time I can't stop reading them. So it's the weirdest mix that I have with moshfegh, and also I just feel like maybe her stories are not like the perfect narrative, or they are not the perfect novel for me, which is not to say that I don't enjoy them, and I'm gonna continue reading moshfegh this year and hopefully next year. But this one is about a woman who decides she's going to just sleep for a year, and we see how she begins to go down this path of taking pills and drugs in order to sleep. And it sounds boring, and it kind of is, but at the same time it isn't. Like, a lot of things happen, and there's a lot of reflections in this book that I found profound, and that taught me a little bit about myself too, and how tired I truly am also of having to work every day, but also how I enjoy it as well. So there are times where you just want to say, you know what, I just want to hibernate. And I feel like this book represents that. It's like the idea of, hey, you know what, I'm tired. But she took it to the extreme, where she's like, hey, I'm tired, I'm gonna sleep for a year and actually do it. And yeah, that's My Year of Rest and Relaxation. And then I read Angel Fall by Susan E. And I loved this one a lot. I gave it 5 stars. This one was one of my favorite books when I was a teenager, when I was growing up. So it was a fun experience to read it again and to get this perspective again. It's about a post-apocalyptic world where angels have taken over, and it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be so violent. I didn't remember it being this violent and this like gruesome and gory, and I was surprised. I thought it was a romance, though it is. It doesn't really have those like strong romance elements in this first book. I feel like it's more of like a friendship building, a sister trying to find her sister. So it's like a sisterly bond type of story, and I just really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. I have it right here, don't I? Yeah, I do. So here it is, my beautiful Angel Fall. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And yeah, I really love it. The next book I read was Emily Henry's Book Lovers. I've read every single Emily Henry book, and I can say that I really enjoy her novels. My favorite is, I think, Beach Read, but I also really enjoyed Book Lovers. And I liked the main character a lot. I feel like a lot of people maybe don't like her because she's not very likable in the beginning, but then I started to relate to her and feel like, hey, I am like that too. I feel like sometimes women are put into this category, especially in romance, where they have to be like sweet and like the main character energy. And in this case, our main character doesn't want a family, doesn't want to be a mother. She wants to focus on her career. She wants to do her own things without having to have a partner necessarily with her. And I feel like that's something that we don't see a lot in romance books. If you have any other romance novel recommendations of women who are like this, please do leave them in the comments below. I would love to read them. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought Charlie, the main like love interest, was beautifully written and just like a nice guy. I feel like Emily Henry is able to portray healthy relationships, and that's not something that we see very often. So I really enjoyed it, and I give it 4 stars. Lastly, oh, I forgot to say which books I read in August, which books I read in September, and which ones I read in October. I feel like it doesn't really matter, but for me, I guess I just want to say it. I read La Bona, Women Don't Know You Pretty, When Things Fall Apart in August. Then I read The Elephant Tree, Attached, My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and Angel Fall in September. And then I read Book Lovers, The Poppy Wars in October. So I haven't really read a lot of books, but that's okay. Alright, so I already spoiled the last book I read in October, but it was The Poppy Wars, sorry, by R.F. Kuang, and this was really, really, really good. I give it 4 or 5 stars, and this is a fantasy novel about a girl who goes to a school for people with special abilities, and she is very determined to get ahead because she comes from a vulnerable household and she's an orphan. But we have another book about, you know, special orphan who rules the world and is very special. But I really enjoyed it. You can tell by just how much I tabbed it, and the quotes here, the characters. I think the main thing I liked about this book was the characters and the interactions, and the fact that we have a range of different things happening, but it never felt like too much. I wasn't lost. I read it in a couple of hours sitting at a coffee shop, and I feel like I'm gonna do the same thing with the second book and the third book in the trilogy. I'm just gonna go to a coffee shop and read them because they are the type of books that I feel like are meant to be read fast. I don't feel like this is a book that I would take that would take long to read at all. It's very enthralling and purposeful in the way that it tells you the story. I feel like R.F. Kuang knew exactly where she wanted to take this, and she knows exactly where it's going to end up. So I'm really excited to see where the story takes us, and I really enjoyed this first installment. And that is it for all the books I've read these last couple of months. Thank you all for sticking around and giving me love and just sweet, kind words. Everything that has happened in the last couple of months has taught me how much I enjoy the things that I do for myself, and so I'm really happy that you guys also really enjoyed those things, and I am hoping to continue making more content throughout December. Right now it's November and I'm doing the Blooming Readathon, so that's also been really exciting, and I will talk to you all about it when I'm done reading the books. There may be some vlogs coming, and so yeah, some things are happening, some things are coming, and I hope you're doing well. Please stay hydrated, drink some water or some coffee if you're a coffee drinker. If not, drink some tea if you're a tea drinker, and I will see you in my next video very, very soon. Bye bye.